Hi, I'm Joshua Farley.
And I'm Marcus Soto.
And this is Inside Our Industry, where we share weekly insights on everything to do with the electric and solar industry, contracting, and best practices. Let's talk about pricing. So we do time and material work, or we give estimates or a flat rate. I mean, you can do cost plus. We did cost plus years ago. We tried cost plus, which was, just tracking all of our costs and then add 10, 15%, whatever it was for the overhead for our profit. That one didn't really pan out.
Doesn't really work. It
didn't work. We
didn't use it for long.
No, yeah. I think we did it on one project with one customer who wanted it. We tried it out. It didn't work for our business model. But most of the time, we provide estimates. Almost all of our solar work is done on an estimate. Mm-hmm. Over half of our electric works are done on an estimate or a flat rate, which is just, hey, if you want something installed, we give you a set price to do that, and you know exactly what that price is going in.
Yep.
And when we're done, we can give you a bill for that price.
Yep, pretty much. And then kind of just the differences between the time and material stuff and the estimate is, in the estimate, we have to put in everything in there that we think could happen as far as that estimate goes. We look at it, we figure out exactly what you need, and we build that estimate, for what we think we're going to have to do for that job. Right. And a T&M, we go and we kind of figure that stuff on site during that time and fix it at the same time.
Right. So when we're doing an estimate, we usually will look at worst case scenario, but trying to stay competitive. So there are things that we do, like if we give you an estimate to run, from your service outside through your office space into a warehouse to run lines. We know what it's going to take to get there, but if we get into the grid ceiling and there's a solid beam going across, there's no way to penetrate. Now we got to take different routes. Then we have to do a change order. And what we would do is, and they don't always have to be a change order. Sometimes we get in there. So on that particular case, we have to take a different route. Might be an additional cost. But also on the flip side is if we give you an estimate to do that same run and we open it up and there's an empty conduit from point A to point B, we're going to come to you and say, hey, we found an empty conduit. We're going to take money off the bid because we found a better, more efficient way to do it.
And that's just honesty in our business, right? Yeah. That's just, we found a faster way to do it. We got it done in half the time because of X, and we're going to give that back to the customer because it didn't take us as what we thought it was going to take.
And not every company will do that, right? And there's something to be said for that mentality. Some of that mentality is, we gave you a bid, you agreed, that's the price no matter how we get there, and that makes up, those wins make up for the losses on the bids they give other people. So it's like a ebb and flow, right?
Yep.
But I don't think that's fair to the client, nor does it fair to us, because those same contractors that do that, if they were to come across an obstacle, they're going to upcharge you.
Yep.
And we get hit with upcharges all the time, like, I didn't have this included. Now, I challenge every contractor that if I hire a contractor to put something in, like let's say, if you hire us to put in an outlet, we're going to cover getting into the wall. We're going to cover putting the box in. We're going to cover putting the outlet in. We're going to cover putting the wires in, like all those things. But we've had experience in contracting, like we've got one, we're under construction at my house, and they're like, well, we're going to put the windows in, but we didn't include the trim. Things that I think are all inclusive. Like I'm going to put an outlet in, and I'm going to put the cover on it, because it's part of the outlet. You got to be aware. You got to make sure. That's where, like, when you get a written estimate, you want to make sure that the scope is very detailed, so that you know exactly what you're getting for your money. And then on the other side, time and material. We charge $120 an hour for most of our clients. We do have a preferred vendor list that gets a better rate. Mm-hmm. If you guys want to know about that, feel free to reach out to us. But that being said, is if I come to your job or my technician comes to your job, it's going to be $120 an hour. So if he's there for 3 hours, it's going to be $360. And the cost of any materials that he used on your site, you're going to get charged for those materials as well. So, and we have a matrix for that.
Yep. And typically what we see when we're looking at T&M versus a estimate is T&M typically ends up being slightly less than the estimate cost does. But what the benefit for the customer on an estimate is you get to kind of see what the cost is going to be up front versus not knowing what it's going to be from the beginning.
So there's a risk involved. Mm-hmm. And so like, because you get one lump sum, you know exactly what's going to be.
Yep.
When you tell a guy T&M, and some guys are horrible. So I've seen technicians go out there and take 5 hours to do a 1 hour job just because they're milking the clock, is what they say, milking the clock.
Yep.
We don't have guys that do that here. We won't put up with it. We don't do that. We don't agree with it. They just don't fit our culture or our environment. They don't fit our company. There is a risk. It's kind of like giving your electrician a blank check, right?
Yep.
Or giving your contractor a blank check.
Yep.
So there's definitely risk involved, and we see a lot of times customers are timid. And in certain scenarios, we'll say, hey, we're going to give you an estimate, but we're going to also track it on a time and material basis so that we can provide to you kind of the value. So if we're in a competitive spot, when we compete, we don't really break down our materials and labor when we give an estimate. It just takes away our competitive advantage. And what that means is my labor rate when I'm bidding a job, depending on what the job is, could be different than another job I'm bidding because of it could be a hard dig, a hard thing, or there could be, lift charges, certain things in there that I change our rates for. We do a lot of electrical work, right? So we get better pricing than some other contractors. So if I were to break those out, you could see that I have a better price for my materials, but not for my labor. And then you might want to negotiate, compare me to another contractor. And we don't do that because it takes away my competitive advantage. But if we give lump sum estimates, you can compare that to our competition,
someone else,
and really know where we're at.
Almost everything we do on the solar side of the business is an estimate. Almost everything we do on the solar side of the business is an estimate.
Yeah.
So when we're doing a new install for the solar side, we go out, we look at the site if we need to, and we figure out what the number for that install is going to be, and the customer gets that number up front. We figure out how that's going to get paid for as far as the financing and all of that. That's how it goes on a new system. If it's somebody that already has an existing system, we usually start with a inspection of that system to figure out exactly where we think the issue is, or we find the issue in that system, and then we give them an estimate at that time to fix that.
But you're doing time and material to troubleshoot.
Right.
Yes. So everything we do troubleshooting is guaranteed. Like if you call up and ask for a troubleshooting, we can give you a flat rate and that covers a couple hours, but really it's all time and material because we just don't know how long it's going to take or what it takes to, what the problem is until we get into it. We get calls quite often and say, hey, my equipment's not working and we just can't figure out how much is it going to cost us? Well, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with your equipment. I don't know if it's and there's times we get out there and it's not an electrical issue. Right. It's an equipment issue, or it's a plumbing issue, or an HVAC. So there's a lot of things that take electricity and that stop working aren't always electrical work. So, we want to make sure that we provide a service to you. And when we troubleshoot, time and material is the best way for you. One, because my guys are good at it. And they're going to do it in a quick and orderly fashion. Once we find the problem, it's usually a quick repair that's covered under the troubleshooting, the time and material. Or if it's something major, then we provide an estimate at that time. But a lot of times, when it comes down to it, if you have something small or something that needs troubleshooting, you want to move forward with the time and material. It gets you on the schedule faster. You don't have to wait for an estimator to go through that, and then you're going to save money in the long run, I think.
And anything that needs troubleshooting has to be on that time and material.
Oh, yeah.
It just has to be. And then I don't know how many times we've gone out to a site and figured out that it was just the utility. Right. The utility had some kind of problem that was causing something. And we can't do anything about that other than contact the utility and tell them that there's a problem with their system.
Right, but a lot of times they don't know.
Yeah,
and the customer doesn't know, and every time that happens, the customer will call. We get customers that call SRP and APS and say, hey, my power's out. Well, we're not showing any, then they tell them, we're not showing any outages in your area. You'll have to call an electrician. So we have to come out to validate that to SRP or APS before they'll send a troubleshooter out.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty much pricing in a nutshell. So estimate versus time and material. Time and material usually works in the best interest of everybody as long as you have an honest contractor or an honest technician that's out on your site. But lump sum pricing estimates are also a great way to go. You'll know what your project's going to cost before you even start.
Yep.
Hope this helps.